its new all-time high by the end of 2025, I think, is likely. 2026, 2027, we're talking about 500,000, 600,000, 700,000. Of course, it's going to a million, 2 million. That's Bitcoin. Everything else goes to zero against Bitcoin. There's so much FUD, and there's so much attack coming from Jamie Dimon, and it's coming from the big banks. They're all attacking Michael Saylor and Strategy, so the stock is at a very, very rare discount to anything, enterprise value, the genius of Michael Saylor. I'm very constructive about the stock at these prices, and I agree with the analysts on Wall Street who have got a $500, $600, $700 price target. You know, it's a great buy. December 2025, highly likely. The ignition phase is been ignited.
After a week of significant crypto market downturn and Bitcoin price crash fears continuing, billionaires are sounding the alarm that we could witness something much worse in the weeks to come. But Max Keiser issues a warning to all Bitcoin and crypto holders, and the sell-off we're seeing is only the beginning. The Bitcoin tsunami that's coming will change crypto forever, and Keiser discusses the inevitable collapse of the fiat money system as we know it, and says there's a plan to take over Bitcoin and crypto. With BlackRock being one of the biggest players to get into the space, this will be the least of our concerns, as entire countries are now coming for Bitcoin, with the current price sitting just over $91,000, still down over 11% in the past month. In this latest interview, Keiser discusses why it's more important than ever that nation-states adopt Bitcoin and incorporate into the global economy before the inevitable collapse of the current monetary system as we know it. Everyone's focused on tariffs, inflation, and the so-called weak dollar, but Max Keiser is seeing something completely different, and it might be the most underreported economic shift of 2025. Behind the scenes, the US just pulled off what could be the biggest corporate tax cut in modern history without even changing the official rate. Through new depreciation rules, companies can now write off almost everything. That drops the effective corporate tax rate to somewhere around 10 to 12%. That means the US just became the lowest taxed major economy on Earth. Let's get right into the latest interview with Max Keiser, as he gives us his prediction for Bitcoin in the coming months, and why a massive surge in capital is about to pour into the space. Drop your comments down below and subscribe if you enjoy the content we do here.
You know, Larry Fink is working for us, and Michael Saylor, you know, they are our employees. And now I think as Bitcoin becomes really mainstream with the United States, obviously, with their talk of a million Bitcoin strategic reserve, and every politician has an opinion, every bank has an opinion. The Bitcoin services are popping up everywhere. The timeline that is often referenced is the one for the internet. You had that hockey stick moment where you went from 400 million users to 2 billion users. So I think we're kind of at that moment now. And 2 years from now, three years from now, most of the people using Bitcoin will have no idea they're using Bitcoin. They'll have Bitcoin-backed credit cards or something like that. They won't even think about it. Really, it'll just be woven into the fabric of our financial lives.
The 300 years experiment in central banking is coming to a close. We now have individual sovereignty, and the metrics that you evaluate and look at countries are changing. So GDP is no longer a great reference in terms of what a country is doing or how it's doing. There's a metric that I like, which is Bitcoin per capita, which is how much Bitcoin has the country put in their Bitcoin strategic reserve. How does that translate per capita? That is a lot different mentality than if you're trapped in a fiat money world, where it's a spending mentality, where the purchasing power is guaranteed to go down, whereas with Bitcoin, your purchasing power is mathematically guaranteed to go up. Suddenly, there is a future, and to be prosperous in that future, you want to save your money in the best possible, hardest money ever created, and that would be Bitcoin. So that brings about a general feeling of optimism, which is a lot different than in countries that are mired in the fiat money nightmare, where there is no optimism. There can only be defeatism, and you see that everywhere you go. You're in fiat land, the fiat world, and it's a lot different. People are, upset because their purchasing power is collapsing. They should stop buying stocks like Intel and start buying Bitcoin. What is the point of just going deeper into fiat money hell? The problem is that the U.S. dollar reserve in the U.S. has a very strong emotional attachment to the U.S. dollar. And they think that both will coexist in the future. I think that they won't coexist in the future. There'll be a global Bitcoin standard, and the U.S. dollar will go the way of every single other reserve currency in history, which is into the toilet. None have survived more than 100 years. Every single one over the past 300 years has lost between 99 and 100% of its purchasing power. The average lifespan of a fiat money is 27 years. So the U.S. is doing everything it possibly can to try to keep this. I say the U.S. dollar is basically in a hospice right now, and they're trying to use palliative care to keep it alive by every trick in the book. But it's a dead currency walking. But until they realize that and start building up their Bitcoin reserve, they will continue to lag behind El Salvador. My vision is a decentralized state where the nodes in every home, the nodes have the money, the nodes have the Bitcoin, the government is broke. This is the inversion of the centralized state we've had for 300 years. We're going to go toward a decentralized state that's modeled after Bitcoin, where the citizens have all the money and the government has. So you dictate what the citizens want because they have the money and they vote on how to spend the money. The government is just allowing this is a facilitator. And that's what I see as a decentralized state and government.
Because we needed to build trust in El Salvador as a place for capital markets to happen. Because trust is so foundational, like so fundamental to capital markets, right? The United States is able to be, they have 100 years of capital markets. They have US Treasury bonds, like the most liquid, deepest market in the world, right? So they already had the institutional trust. They already had capital markets, and they have huge, deep pools of talent here as well. But therefore, they could do like more everything crypto, and it's all like the same. Whereas we are very focused on just the best, Bitcoin, right? And that's the Bitcoin dominance, which is maybe kind of fake because all the other coins, they count market cap, which is just pre-mined, held on somebody's private balance sheet and stuff like that. But we could focus just on the best, just on the most honest money, just on the one that has no insiders, no oligarchs.
Embracing an unyielding enthusiasm for the crypto realm, Keiser confidently predicts that the next collapse is looming on the horizon, as BlackRock and many other crypto giants are bracing for. Keiser reassures that a long-expected surge awaits, as Bitcoin's price will still rise exponentially in the second half of 2025.
Bitcoin gives you that individual sovereignty, and it gives you something for your family, for the next generation and the generation of that. It turns your work into immutable, uncensorable, unconfiscatable, perfect money that is yours and only yours, that nobody can take from you. The government cannot take it from you. The history of Bitcoin is really expressed in three ways. That money existed before the state. Then you have Bitcoin separates money from state, and Bitcoin kills the state. And now this is an interesting thing to consider, is that if the state, like the central banks around the world, dissolves, if the United States dissolves, and I think it will, as all nation states do, it's no longer fit for purpose. It's no longer able to protect people in this country, in the United States, are not really being protected by the basic functionality of any government is to protect the citizens. That's the one minimal requirement you would need from a government, and that's not being met by this government. So we really have to think about the future and think about a world where countries and sovereignties and central banks really get obliterated and disintermediated by Bitcoin, and we enter a world of decentralization. Does that mean that you stay in the U.S. and fight, or does it mean you leave the U.S.? Well, that choice is up to everybody, but the thing about Bitcoin is because it's global money, it's universal money, you have the choice to leave. So just a few years ago, there was talk about countries banning Bitcoin. But now these countries figured out that it's impossible to ban Bitcoin. You can't ban Bitcoin.
So with Bitcoin, any country that stays in the fiat money world is going to get destroyed by countries in the Bitcoin world. That's the new world. It's the Bitcoin world. And so the global hash rate, global hash rate, and everybody in this room should be stacking sats. This is my main message. Everybody in this room should be stacking sats. Obviously, everybody is stacking sats in this room to some degree, and I would say stack harder. Stack like your life depends on it, because it does. It really does. If in fact, occasionally you got to sound the retreat, and if that's what happens and it's time to retreat, you can put your Bitcoin on seed phrase and walk naked through the airport, get on a plane, fly anywhere in the world, and have all your wealth with you. They can't confiscate it. They can't do that with gold. Can't do that with paper money. So it's really remarkable in that way. It gives people an option that they've never had in history. So that's a great example. I know later Donald Trump will be speaking, and you see what's happening here, that the political class recognizes there's a huge vote to be had in the Bitcoin space. So they're coming out and they're talking to Bitcoiners. They're here in the conference. I think RFK already said he wanted the government to put maybe 3 or 4 million Bitcoin on the country's balance sheet, which is what we already do in El Salvador. I think he may have stolen the thunder from Donald Trump. I think that was going to be his big reveal, so he'll have to come up with something else. But the fact now that we see the whole political pendulum swinging toward Bitcoin should also encourage you to stack harder, right? Whatever it is your position is, keep stacking and figure out ways to make that happen, because the trip from 65,000 to 650,000, which is what we're going to see here in the next cycle, you're going to be happy for every Satoshi that you've been able to accumulate.
The Bank of Japan, historically central to global currency dynamics, is on the brink of default, which could precipitate a global economic downturn. Max foresees a looming economic catastrophe driven by collapsing fiat money systems, rampant inflation, and bank failures. He suggests that a transition to a Bitcoin standard might be on the horizon as the world grapples with the impending crisis. He asserts that the promises made by the Federal Reserve and central banks have been hollow, leading to excessive money printing and a proliferation of poor investments. And with the aftermath of the recent inflation surge, Keiser says this will not lead to a return to the status quo. He argues that the economy has spun out of control, with the US facing a mounting debt crisis. Keiser presents 2 bleak possibilities: hyperinflation or a deflationary depression. In either scenario, the overall quality of life deteriorates. He notes the absence of viable solutions, indicating an even greater severity of the crisis. Interestingly, he points out how political figures are discussing Bitcoin as part of a potential solution, marking a shift towards a Bitcoin-centric financial framework. What do you think about the latest interview with Max Keiser? And what are your thoughts on his prediction for Bitcoin? Drop your comments down below and subscribe if you enjoy the content we do here.